my name is Cristina Gamboa. I'm one of the co-founders of Lacol, a cooperative of architects established here in Barcelona. In Lacol, we are a cooperative of workers, exactly. So the cooperative is the legal structure that organizes our work in a collectively way, because we were looking for a horizontal structure and a democratic control of the company in a way. And basically, Lacol always had tried to fulfill the needs, but also the interest of the members. And that's why we have kind of a quite broad scope of action. And basically, right now, we are organized in 4 lines of work, from cooperative housing, which is more about the policies, but also how to support groups to promote cooperative housing projects. The architecture, which basically it's the design, such cooperative housings, all the kind of buildings. We have also another line of work related with the management of the construction, because we realize that also the construction field is quite a space, political space, but also a space that the users and the cooperative don't have the skills to manage. So we are giving this support. And the last area of work, it's about environmental or energy transition, to understand how the city also needs certain devices, infrastructures, from energy communities to restoration of the buildings. So in that sense, it's true that we are working from the design to the policies or construction development. I would say that it's totally what is happening here in Barcelona. Barcelona, I mentioned it in the lecture, has only 1.52% of social housing, which means that the rest is basically based on the rules of the market, with a 65% of individual ownership. So the market is controlling it, and there is no tools or mechanism from the public sector to control it, despite there are kind of new policies that tries to deal with it, but it's really difficult. So when we finished our studies, we had the opportunity to be involved with the first initiative of cooperative housing in the city of Barcelona. And it was the way of building kind of an alternative, building a model which tries to block the speculation because of the legal system, which is the cooperative as a collective ownership. And for us, it was interesting to really push and give support and energy to this initiative, because I would think it's important to try to increase the non-speculative and affordable stock of the city, because at the end, it's the right to the city, which is linked to the right to housing, but it's also the right to a stable place to grow for the kids, to the elderly people to have a stable life with their surroundings. So I would say that when all this is broken, all the networks, the social networks and the social fabric is broken. So I would say that we have to fight for our city, for our neighborhoods, through the capacity to remain in these neighborhoods. Well, I think that when we did La Borda, we couldn't imagine that it has this recognition. We were super lucky because we were a young team, and we had a big group of collaborators helping us, the environmental consultancy, teachers from the university. And I think that all together, we managed to understand the potentials of this project, because this allowed to, in a way, challenge regulations and standards. And I think that the most interesting thing is to really become real, to see that how the processes with the relation with the municipality, with the leasehold, the finding system that we found here, how we build it with a low budget. So this idea of trying to fulfill the programs in the process and became a reality, I think it shows that it's possible for other people. No? And especially for me, it's interesting that other communities that has the need of housing understand that there is a set of knowledge that can be transferred to them. And I would say that all the contexts are different, And also we don't want to be naive sometimes, and always we try to understand how we had a precisely specific moment in a specific context, no? Because in Sants, which is the neighborhood where La Borda was built, it's a neighborhood with a long tradition of cooperativism, which has also a moment with a political party that gave support to all those policies and projects, with a specific economical and funding institutions. But well, I think that basically trying to understand which are the important stakeholders, everyone maybe can make it real. And in other hands, I think in La Borda was a bit of a Trojan horse for certain issues, the environmental performance, but also how to build with a really simple systems. So how to build quality housing with affordable and low budget. And also how we introduce, for example, in collective housing, the wood, the CLT, was one of the first buildings to be built in CLT in Barcelona. In that moment, it was even the higher of Spain. So, well, I think it's shown that it was possible. And I think also the cooperative, La Borda, but also Lacol, we tried to be quite generous in the sense that sharing, show the building, share everything that we need when we had in order to make possible this replicability, no? I think that when La Borda started, the group of neighbors were looking for architects that had experience in participation, but also had an alignment in terms of their mindset and their cultural kind of ambitions and goals. And also for them, it was really important that they were part of the cooperative system. So that's why they were kind of asking Lacol to support the project. And I think that precisely this idea of a shared values is something super important when you start a project with a community. Also the recognition that the community has a knowledge, which is really a privilege for us, because people used to live in spaces, has their own needs, understands how they want to live, what they want to share. So I think that this idea of reducing the hierarchies and understanding that we have a technical knowledge, they have also important knowledge to bring to the project. And also we had this trajectory and experience on participatory process, most of them in public space, more linked to municipalities. But I think that all these methodologies and the research that we did in also participatory allowed the project to be implemented. And I think it was an organic process. I think we were young, it was the first one. So it was a kind of a trial process of testing, implementing methodologies, testing things. And for us, the most important thing regarding participation also is the capacity to transfer the knowledge to a group that empowers the group to take the decision, a real participation, no? That they are taking the control of the development. And also with this knowledge, I think for them it's easier to build and also to maintain and also to understand how the building will behave once it's finished and they are moving there. I think the case of La Morada, in one hand, it's important because of the model itself. It's a specific community with a specific needs, but also it was, I would say, politically really instrumental because they wanted to visualize how if most of the people has a difficulty to have access to housing, certain collective, for them it's even more difficult because sometimes there is certain exclusion, because sometimes they are more vulnerable with lower incomes. So I think that fragility of the collective was something that they wanted to put onward. At the same time, I think that it was interesting for us to share with them a lot of readings and feminist narratives to also understand how they all the experiences can be implemented in a special form in architecture, but at the same time, they were also giving a lot of learning to us. For example, the rhythms of the process sometimes are quite high because they have to address the architectural process, but also the financial, look for the finance to respond to legal issues. At the end, this is quite exhausting sometimes. So for them, caring to the process, caring the timings, and caring themselves was something important. And this makes us aware how exhausting sometimes it is. No? So starting by how they were framing the times of the process, at the same time, they were really autonomous because they had a important background about self-organization. So they were also taking a lot of debates by their own. So it was a transfer of knowledge, which it was. So this idea of also the recognition of the difference and the sensitivities and singularities, it was something that they were also having really on mind. In other hands, for example, they wanted to be really conscious about the neighborhood where they were arriving. They were trying to start a relation with the existing networks, feminist networks, with this idea that they are not better or different. They will be part of these networks. So they were super conscious about that. And even part of the program of the building, the way to organize it, they were always having on mind how inclusive they can be, from the accessibility, taking into account that they can have different capacity physically or mentally. So I would say that the priorities that they were establishing through all the process were putting care in the center. No? Well, I think that basically when we are having, I presented also in the lecture, this idea that Lacol has this mission or vision of trying to generate community infrastructures and we understood architecture as a tool for eco-social transition in a way. And we are right now developing with my colleague Carlos research about sufficiency, because we have to understand that we have planetary limits, and architecture with the physical infrastructure, but also with the routines and our habits and the way we inhabit all those spaces has a huge impact. So for us, it's interesting to understand how those projects, such as Borda, are trying to promote another way of living together, but more consciously with the environment, and also trying to reduce our footprint. So I think that the topic of the Congress, it's kind of crossing our daily mindsets and ideas and reflections. And it was super amazing to see such a cohort of people talking about that.